See how well the YouTube thing goes today. Just in the middle of pouring a beer. I'm not going to get to the overlay in time. Welcome to Beer Fuel. I am your host, at Beerfield Hop, Chris Hopper of TPs. As always, joined by at Beerfield Theory. We are in our post-Ryan Miner era, which is a lot like our pre-Ryan Miner era.
That's good to say. We're going back to what we used to know.
Yep, for the last 15 episodes anyway.
Yep.
So yeah, Ryan will be doing Dynasty stuff. I am still going to send him the link every episode, just in case, or just because. Even though
I get this feeling he's going to do it at least once or twice.
I think he will too. I think he'll drop in at least once or twice, just because he's bored or something. Especially if we're on a night where he doesn't have anything going on. I think that'll for sure be a thing. All right. So free agency's over. NFL draft is over. So we've talked a lot about free agent movement. We've talked a lot about players being drafted. What we haven't done in probably a month and a half is take a good look in at players that are still on teams that haven't moved anywhere that may have been affected by free agency or the draft. We haven't done that. So
we're
going to come back on those guys kind of division by division. Not every team will get talked about because not every team had significant changes, but teams like the Bears, for example, did. So we're going to check in on the guys that were there already, that were not draft picks, that were not free agent signings, how they've been impacted, how their dynasty value has been impacted, or in some cases, some free agents that may have gone someplace and were like, they're surely going to draft someone, right? And then they didn't. So we're really going to check back in on the veterans after that. So talk a little bit of strategy. The second part of dynasty drafts, not so much the drafting piece, but roster cut downs and how to go about that. But first, we're drinking beer. This is episode 485. I hope I changed that on YouTube.
You did. But God damn, that feels so forever. Jesus.
Jesus, we're not up higher, or Jesus that.
No, it just the 485 episode. That's a lot of fucking episodes.
A lot of episodes. Yep, sure is. And that means we're on our 485th-ish type of beer or brand of beer on this show. Probably more.
I got something that has not been on the show ever.
I got something
in style I've
never seen before. So
same here.
Not style or anything like that. Just a brewery's variant. All right, that's enough to.
Well, name of the style is something we've never had on.
Interesting. Now I'm excited.
But I think it feels made up.
What's fueling beer for you?
Well, I'll tell you.
I know.
All right. What you got?
All right. So I got something out of Chicago. I was at Benny's doing, making my rounds yesterday, and I wanted to saw this and I was intrigued. Benny's has been doing they changed up their mix pack to finally allow 16-ounce cans on there. And
does nobody distribute 12-ounce cans anymore?
Yeah. Like you can do a little bit more expensive 4-pack. Unfortunately, I was able to get it on there, but I think it's Dunyear. This is a vineyard and brewery in South Loop, Chicago.
Okay.
So this beer is called Savin.
Yeah, it's a vineyard ale.
This is a
grape ale.
A vineyard ale, which I haven't heard of. I'm assuming grape ale is probably more up, or maybe
grape ale is an Italian thing, but it usually uses white wine grapes. So
this is passion fruit with Sauvignon Blanc grapes. So you're right with the white.
Okay.
The white wine grapes.
Yeah, there is an Italian beer style that uses white wine grapes in it.
Yeah. So it's passion fruit, Sauvignon Blanc grapes, hybrid fruit ale. Which vineyard ale is a cool name. obviously with this being a winery brewery,
It is.
First couple sips, I've really enjoyed it. So
Yeah.
we'll talk more about it when I get to it.
A grape ale is in color somewhere between a cream ale and a Mexican lager. So yeah, you're right there. It is. Yeah, I mean, there's no real other notes to it. It's a neutral bodied sparkling ale, essentially. So it's neutral bodied, probably highly carbonated. And
Oh yeah. Yeah.
grapes, hops, and yeast coming out. So yeah, you got a grape ale. They just didn't call it a grape ale. It's a made up name.
I mean,
but the style is the same premise. That's really cool though. You don't ever see those.
It's basically what I wanted brewed IPAs to be, which is not IPAs, but the dryness and the fruity brightness from the grapes being used, and with it being actual, wine grapes.
Yeah.
And not just trying to extract the dryness from New Zealand hops. Yeah. It's good. It's fun.
Sweet. Well, I'm excited to hear your take on it. I have Saugatuck Brewing's Great Goat, the greatest oatmeal stout of all time, is what they're calling it. It's a pretty bold claim. That's a really
claim,
bold claim. But okay, I couldn't read that. So anyway, yeah, Saugatuck Brewing is out of Michigan. So after Ryan leaves, I have something from Michigan on. 6.5% on this guy. Calls himself the greatest oatmeal stout of all time. So be creamy, decadent, rich. Little bit of chocolate there, perhaps. We'll let you know about halfway through the show. Let's get into the news where I'm literally reading Roto World.
News.
I don't think there's a lot. All right, right at the top, Chiefs release LaMichael Pirine. That's not anything to take note of. TJ Hawkinson
didn't even know he was on the team.
Has not put a timeline on his return from last year after season-ending knee surgery. He had 2 surgeries at different times. One of them was well after the season. We still don't expect TJ Hawkinson until sometime after the first month of the season, I don't think, based on when that last surgery was.
Yeah, that, and it's just there's no news. There's nothing. There's no negative. There's no positive updates to anything. It's a wait and see game, and I agree. It's going to be in season in which he returns. And depending on how the season's going, by the time he returns, I mean, the Vikings have one of the lowest win totals, being predicted by Vegas. That's going to play in a factor to just based on kind of what the schedule looks like. Their middle to late part of their schedule is pretty brutal, and they have a week 6 bye, and which is one of the earliest bye weeks you can get in the season. So I don't know when Hawk's ready, and Hawk generally plays in line and out. He's of the Kittle mold. They can do both, and that's a lot of stress to put on your knees. It's a lot of extra punishment put on your body, and it may take him a bit to get back.
Yeah, and for some of that too, like if he's okay to cut, but maybe not drive or anything like that. I mean, they just signed Robert.
You'll see
Tunyon
more Munt and Josh Oliver.
You have Josh Oliver, you have Johnny Munt.
We signed Robert Tunyon.
Yeah, you signed Robert Tunyon. So you're not really going to be hurting for whatever veteran depth the team needs, and they just may have to roll a couple tight ends to fill what Hawk does, but. That's
I think
okay.
that Robert Tunyon signing
a lot of teams do
says
that.
a lot too. Yeah, I think that Tunyon signing actually says a lot to where they think he's at even right now. Because it was just Munt and Oliver on the roster. You signed that third tight end who's got, experience, a good amount of experience in the short time that he's played.
Great blocker too, Josh Oliver is.
Yeah.
So
between him, it's
filled in admirably as a pass catcher. So I mean, you're really, and you bring in Tunyon who can do a little bit of both. Like they're setting up to be able for him to miss time.
Yeah, that's my prediction too.
Yeah, so we kind of knew that when things carried off into the season, where he didn't have the ACL surgery until after the first of the year.
Was it ACL or was it the MCL?
Yeah, the
Because
ACL and
didn't
the
he get
MCL.
both done, right?
They did the MCL first.
Okay. Okay.
So, and that's I think the easier one to come back from. So,
Yeah, and they wanted to see, I think, how it went before they did anything with the ACL. I think, yeah, it's
yeah.
starting to come back to me now.
Some fringe wide receivers moving around. Uh, Quintez Cephas cut. Demir Bird, picked up from somewhere. So really not a whole lot else to get into here. We talked about Rashi Rice's latest legal issues yesterday. So Martavis Bryant's working out for the Commanders. Yeah.
What?
Martavis Bryant.
Oh, that's right. Because he was like
he was playing.
He was on a team. Yeah.
And he played in the UFL for a little bit, I think, too.
Yeah. He's trying to make his comeback.
Yeah. Bills signed MVS earlier this week. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. I won't dive too much into that now. The Bills are one of the teams on tap for this. So, yeah, really nothing big to get into on the news-wise. Let's go ahead and get into it. This dropped is literally because it has the word Dynasty in it, and I'm trying to use drops I won't ever get to use again.
No.
Dynasty Darlings.
All right, not really a lot of darlings here, but most bets are darlings. We are going to start with the Buffalo Bills, actually, out there in the East. They're a team that they shipped out Diggs. Gabe Davis did not re-sign there. Their top two receivers from last year, and they did not. They did spend some draft capital on Keon Coleman, which was not really what I would consider to be a splash pick. He's kind of been in that second to third tier of receivers, depending on how you break things down. So that means that the guys like, Keon Coleman's not coming in with an extreme pedigree like the top three are. So that means you got guys like Shakir, Curtis Samuel, MVS, Mac Hollins, KJ Hamler, Chase Claypool, Andy Isabella. This is like where a lot of dynasty dreams went to die. And players that people
sounds like all hype players at some point.
It is.
Every one of them sounded like, they were hyped at some point by the community.
They were.
I will say this.
There's opportunity here.
That and, Buffalo traded back twice. I think Coleman was always on their radar. If they wanted Worthy, they would have taken Worthy there. I think they had a pretty good idea who the Chiefs were going to take, or at least had a good idea that they're going to go wide receiver as well. And he was the second pick in the second round, or the first pick. He was the first pick in the second round because he swapped with the Panthers.
Yeah.
They had all day to think about that too. They want him.
Yeah.
Just because
the
community isn't very high on Coleman.
They
Buffalo
saw something.
Very much see something in him, or see something that can be, that he can replicate that they lost. I.e. Diggs, because I doubt he plays the Davis role, but
no, there's nobody there really. I think that's what MVS was signed for. I guess.
Because both Curtis Samuel and Shakir, Shakir especially, just plays primarily slot,
and they're both a little bit smaller. Matt Collins, Valdez Scantling, Chase Claypool, more of that same build,
fuck, man.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, they're going. I want every archetype of body that I can have my receivers be in this team, including receivers that could be tight ends.
Yeah.
Chase Claypool.
So my predictions on this: one of Shakir or Samuel is going to be useful. I don't think it's going to be both. And then somebody else.
I think it's going to be Samuel.
I think it's going to be Samuel too. And then somebody else. I think they're going to get creative with it. But somebody else out of Matt Collins, MVS, Chase Claypool, KJ Hamler, Andy Isabella are going to have weeks. Is there anybody else in that depth that you're willing to take a flyer on?
It's not even a receiver because the top pass catcher in that offense is going to probably be Dalton Kincaid.
And Dawson Knox may not be void of targets either.
No, I think you're going to see a lot of bunch personnel, a lot of 12. They have right? They have the archetypes of wide receivers needed to fill a full positional group.
Yeah.
I'm not betting on Chase Claypool. I'm not betting on MVS because he's just significantly worse Gabe Davis.
They've been around long enough. KJ Hamler's
If
been
Samuel
hurt more
gets
than
hurt,
anything.
which he's been known to do, like if Khalil Shakir can truly secure the slot, Samuel really can't stay healthy. Like he's been battling injuries throughout his entire career. And he had some production towards the end of last year. Keon Coleman's also young. He's going to probably need to be more developed with his route tree. He's going to be cheaper, I think, than Samuel too, and Coleman, right?
Redraft.
And it's going to be a lot of the same thing, right? It's going to be a lot of, everyone suspects that the Bills are going to operate either in that 12 or there's like, who knows, right? I'll take the cheap receiver that I know it's going to start. And I still think Samuel will outperform if he's healthy, but I think the dart throw is on Shakir and the double-digit rounds. And obviously Dawson Knox in deeper leagues. I don't really care about tight end premium, but I think that's a bonus, especially if Kincaid gets hurt. But Knox has always been just a primary red zone threat.
Yeah.
And maybe gets like 3 or 4 targets.
And Shakir, we did like the profile.
We did. We both were big fans of him.
Only a second-year player. Didn't get a ton of opportunity, but did have some flashes last year. So him continuing to develop is certainly not out of the realm of possibility. A point I meant to make and do a whole section on it before we jumped into this, and I didn't, but I'll make it now. Is for any of that other group of guys, MVS, Hamler, whatever, if you're rebuilding, it's cut down season. No, I'm not saying trade. It's cut.
Oh, I'm sorry. Like, don't bring him on.
No, it's cut.
Maybe
down.
KJ, but don't do it.
It's cut down season. So if you are, you got guys on there that are not on teams, rolled into worse situations, and you're looking to pick somebody up that maybe you can get some late round draft capital for once they flash once or twice in the season, or predicting a late career breakout, which none of us are, but not late career, but you're not early either. What I would say is don't hesitate to take a roll on one of those guys, even Curtis Samuel. I don't think he's getting cut, but some of these guys at the end of rosters, especially on rebuilding teams where there's a lot more flexibility for turnover, keep an eye on your waivers right now because it's cut down seasons. People recover from rookie drafts. There's some guys that were rostered last year that are bubble guys that are going to get bumped. So you can be looking for upgrades there, and there's some shots you can take here. Other thing to talk about with the Bills, by the way, is more of what didn't change, and that's James Cook also staying solidified in essentially not a ton behind him. Frank Gore Jr. is a guy that they brought on that has a profile that I like, but he was undrafted. And then Ray Davis was drafted in the 4th round, but crapshoot back, so James Cook survived.
He's about 2 years away from retirement home, so.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's one thing to note here, though. It's, I believe the number 2 back slated right now behind Cook is Davis.
Ty Johnson.
They let Latavius go. Is it Ty? Okay, it's still going to be Ray Davis in my mind. Fucking Ty Johnson, whatever. You're old news, bud. Both Davis and Frank Gore have like pretty much very similar athletic profiles and size. They're slightly bigger than Cook, and they're slightly taller, but barely. Like I think Cook's like 5'9", 199, like that, and I think Gore and Davis are like 5'10", 200. Like it's not much, but they're going to be guys that you should look at as the one injury away, especially when you get a little more clarity. I don't know how that backfield looks like, but as we all know, once Buffalo gets to the red zone, it's Josh Allen season. But also to note, just as I believe the first year that his extension takes effect, so there's a little extra incentive that you try to protect your franchise quarterback, now that all that money is starting to hit your team. So be a little leery that maybe we see a little less Josh Allen on golden goals and 3rd and 4 and short.
Yeah. All right. Next thing I want to talk about here, the Dolphins haven't had anything change. Their offense has stayed pretty static, so we won't go to them. We're going to go to the Patriots next. So
So much.
a lot's gone on
Yeah.
here with the addition of Javon Baker and Jalen Polk and Ramondre Stevenson hanging out there. You've gotten Antonio Gibson signed here, and the new quarterback in Drake May. But we got some veterans here that we need to discuss. So, while you've added some rookie talent around them, you still have incumbent wide receivers here in Kendrick Bourne, who was extremely productive until getting hurt. He was their wide receiver one. KJ Osborne, who had some flashes in Minnesota, and he shows up here by way of Minnesota. Then Juju Smith-Schuster also still being here. So focused on the veterans real quick. Let's start with Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne came off a 900-yard season 2 years ago.
Sounds right.
And then was hurt last year, but he's been their one and kind of their most consistent wide receiver. Dynasty value on him was always kind of weird because he was never old, but you're used to him being a role player in San Francisco. So, I mean, the last couple of years it was 925 scrimmage yards in 2021, so 3 years ago. And then injury
I'll say
the
this.
last 2 seasons.
There's a lot of new bodies, a lot of new faces, right? Whole new coaching staff.
They gotta earn it.
Like this is the first post Belichick era. There's gonna be a lot of low expectations, but still a good amount of it to try to not be as bad as I think people expect you to be. Demario Douglas is still listed as the starting slot receiver, at least on our lads.
Yep.
Per today. And just a slew of
some veterans
who people used to love, right? Yeah, it just said Juju,
KJ,
Keyshawn Boutte, and Jalen Reagor is their special teams, but it's like we're not going to get any clarity on this receiving core until preseason, and even then, like they don't even know who the starting quarterback is. Brissett's listed as a starter, and I think that's kind of what they want to do, right? It's the same thing with Minnesota is that you bring in a veteran that is familiar or could be familiar with the offense or at least with the team that doesn't have to let their new rookie be, forced to play week one.
Yeah.
So, and both these quarterbacks are new to I won't say new. They're both new to the team because Brissett wasn't there last year, but also new to the system. Like there's this whole wide receiver core can have a massive shakeup.
It can.
And like both rookies that end up starting, we're going to see probably multiple of these guys get cut.
You guys are going to
maybe a guy like Baker who doesn't shine through as a early day 3 pick. Maybe he goes to the practice squad or some shit. Like there's a lot going on with his roster, and it doesn't help that New England's considered one of the, if not the worst roster in football, and generally a team you want to avoid and for fantasy in terms of upside production.
Yeah, it is. And that is a good point right there. You want to avoid them for upside production. However, I think my point here on Bourne is like for me, he was a roster bubble guy. I'm like, all right, well, he still has a chance to be the one here, and he was when he was healthy. So, like, I'm not going to make that cut right now until we see how some things shake out. There's going to be injuries, things like that. Juju's still young enough with somewhat recent productivity that, maybe the change of scenery helps him again. Maybe the Steelers stuff was just a fluke. I don't know. KJ Osborne was absolutely good enough in Minnesota when given targets. I mean, that's a guy that can bubble to the top just with more opportunity share too. So you're not betting on anybody here. Definitely players to watch though. And, if you're making deals right now, some of those guys may be fringe enough to use as a sweetener instead of like a 3rd or 4th round draft pick. I think is what I'm getting there. Guys like Juju,
I would be,
Juju.
That would
KJ.
be I'd be very shocked if you can get, Juju was brought onto this team last year and did absolutely nothing with his opportunity. Like I think he could get cut. They're not going to cut KJ, just brought him in. I think Reagor is probably there for special teams.
Yep.
But like a guy like Douglas or even Bourne, if he's not tracked to start, like none of these guys have any sort of true leash. They all could get cut. Like besides the rookies and probably Osborne, they could get cut
at any point,
and
or they could
at
be starting
any point,
That's
and no one
their
will be
interval
shocked by it,
comes.
or they could be starting. Yeah, just like it's
They're Flyers.
yeah, it's just like the Chiefs, but like kindergarten Chiefs.
Yeah,
Where are you like someone's gonna find production, right? We got to leave it last year. In a worse team last year, Bourne was productive until he got hurt. One of these guys will probably come out of the woodworks and give you something low in flex value through the bye weeks, which obviously we're going to have to deal with. My bet would be on one of the rookies, but it could easily be a Bourne or Douglas or Osborne.
Yeah.
And those might be the 5 guys to keep. And the rest are gone besides Rager, who I think is going to play special teams.
All right. Jets. Again, this is going to be a wide receiver discussion. There's probably going to be a lot more of that than anything else because of how light the running back class was. So they still have their contingent from last year. They add Malachi Corley. They add Mike Williams to go around Garrett Wilson as they continue to search for depth there. Aaron Rodgers expected to be back. Is this still, we expect an Allen Lazard bounce back with Rodgers again because of the trust there? I'm never going to bet on Mike Williams because he's never healthy.
You shouldn't bet on any wide receiver too in this offense. It's not. It's again Rodgers during his later years with Green Bay, one of the slowest pace offenses. He just doesn't throw he plays at his it's like the Denver Nuggets. He's just he has the speed that he wants to go, and as long as he's healthy and starting, that's the speed that you're gonna go, and it's gonna go to Garrett Wilson. He'll get Brees involved, and those are your top 2 options, and they're like 3 tiers below that until the next guy even gets a chance. I still like Corley, and I believe you do too. It's not just gonna take an injury. It's he's not Garrett Wilson. He's way too raw, and everything else there. It might be Lazard, but Lazard had the same opportunity last year. I guess with Rodgers hurt, but did absolutely nothing with it.
I think that's the thing, though. He didn't have Rodgers, and there's these Rodgers
and he
guys
still has to make the team. Yeah,
like James Jones that just don't produce anywhere else but with Randall Cobb that just don't produce anywhere else but with Rodgers. I think Lazard might be the next piece of that, but remains to be seen.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Like I said, it's I don't care about anybody else besides Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall in this offense, and I think the numbers are going to show that. Mike, if he stay healthy, because he's, I know you don't care about him, but he turned into more of a possession style guy, and instead of the deep threat boundary
on IR.
I know.
Did that on IR?
I'm just saying 2 years ago. I'm just saying 2 years ago he's a 1,000-yard receiver, and he was a wide receiver too. So again, he's not playing with Justin Herbert. He's not playing in an offense that is is going to be productive on that same level. But
he was 3 years.
I still don't want him.
It's 2021.
3 years ago.
It was 3 years ago. He was a 1,000-yard receiver, and his yards per target was, 8.9. It's not low. It's not high. 15.
But it's not.
Yards
that's not
per
his
reception.
role.
That's like right in between. That's not possession, but that's not deep threat either. That's the most intermediate.
That's a guy that
I've
plays
ever seen.
That is a true traditional one role outside of just the volume that comes with it, which we know it's not going to be him because it should be Garrett.
Yeah.
It's again, if you're trying to, I would try to trade Mike, but I think there's a lot more people like you or a lot more people like me that are very hesitant on any piece of this offense. Again, it's not, Garrett Wilson or Brees Hall. And I think moving off of Mike is going to be tough because he's also coming off injury.
I think, no, I'm not going to move off Mike because I moved off Mike a long time ago. I didn't miss those.
Well, you can't move off something that you don't have.
And if you get another
just
one.
like me, I moved off all mine a long time
And if you get another one, you take that too. All right, on to something that's a little less crappy of an offense, maybe. Dallas Cowboys.
Sure.
So they don't bring in a running back through the draft. They bring in Zeke, who was not good his last stint there. And they don't bring in a wide receiver after Michael Gallup leaves. So, or at least not anybody before the 6th round.
No,
So
it's nothing.
what I want to talk about here is one, a guy that a lot of people liked last year that didn't really get a ton of run with Gallup there. They were 2 years ago. Sorry, he's been here. This will be a second year. Jalen
Yeah.
Tolbert is a guy that I want to talk about here. Brandon Cooks is there as well. Brandon Cooks, I don't think panned out in a way that a lot of us thought he would in that offense.
He did. It took him a bit, but he gave you some production because I had him in a big playoff run as like my wide receiver 4 or 5. He gave you something towards the end. I think when Dallas was a little more productive.
He gave
But
you
you're right. His stretch,
he gave you 3
his
weeks
beginning
of
stretch was
He gave you 3 weeks of touchdowns.
yeah.
Is what he
His
gave
start to the season was fucking rough.
In that playoff run, there was only one game over 50 yards. Just gave you 3 weeks of touchdowns.
I don't need.
So
again, wide receiver 4 or 5. I just remember that he was in my starting lineup because of injuries.
Yeah. But
and he gave me some points.
it's a golden opportunity for Jalen Tolbert here. With Cook starting to wind down, he's 2 years removed now from his last 1,000-yard season after doing that for a while. He's still not old, right? I mean, we can't say that he's surprisingly young anymore, but he's still only 30 after being in the league for 10 years. But he is 2 years removed from his last 1,000-yard season. He wasn't really injured last year. He just only put up 657 yards and 8 touchdowns. A lot of those on the back half, and they were just touchdowns. Yes, you had some DAC injuries throughout there. But Tolbert steps up here in a team that's looking for someone to replace Gallup's productivity, and it can support 2 higher-end receivers. So he's actually a guy that didn't do a lot last year that, I think I really like the way things are shaking out for him in the offseason.
Well, the team showed that they believed in their top 3, right? They didn't take a wide receiver until round 6.
Yeah.
Some unknown fucker. Nobody else by them. They didn't really bring anybody in free agency. The same can be said for running back, right? I mean, this was the most popular landing spot for running backs, and they didn't
draft
take
anybody
at all.
They didn't do
all
anything.
Undrafted, and they brought back Zeke in
with Deuce and Rico again behind Zeke.
I like Tolbert. I want Tolbert. You and I were both fans of him coming out.
Did not see shit of
he's got opportunity,
year,
and that's good to know. This is still going to be a decently high-powered offense. It's going to be a lot of volume. I still think it's going to be a lot of CeeDee Lamb volume, and if Tolbert can take advantage of his opportunity, then great. But 2 years of absolutely nothing to show for it, especially last year when he played all 17 games, it showed nothing for it. You could see one of these guys step up. You also have the tight ends that are there, that have been there for multiple years now. And Jake Ferguson, Luke Shoemaker was a rookie last year. I'm not saying one of those guys is going to blow up, but it's probably a lot of Lamb. And maybe Cook's year 2 in this offense, you'll get a little bit more, but
I mean,
it's opportunity, and Jalen Tolbert's going to probably be free. Like, you're talking about guys that are getting cut during rookie drafts. He's probably one that's on people's shopping blocks because
not on mine at all. Not
us, but I'm saying
one, in a lot of places he can still be on your taxi squad. That's the first part.
True. That's true. Well, at least he's about to be off of it, but like he's been on there for 2 years, so it's you'll have the opportunity, and we'll see. If you can give us some Michael Gallup production, which is bye-week flex worthy.
Yeah.
I don't like. I guess we'll see. I want to be more excited, but I know that it's going to be a lot of concentration targets going to CD. And I think he got tight end production from both Ferguson and even fucking Hendershot. Like we'll see.
Again, looking for opportunities here, guys that came out good. You can't argue that having the opportunity at the
I don't argue with that
spot there
I agree
is
with
good,
you.
And it's the same thing for Rico and Deuce, right? They brought it back with Zeke, who was horribly inefficient their last go around. Didn't do a lot in New England. Looks pretty cooked. But we also saw last year The Tony Pollard thing didn't work because you can't plug hyper efficiency into a regular rule and extrapolate it. Dowdle did have 100 carries last year, just 4 yards an attempt, however. Decent in the receiving game. I think Deuce was kind of disappointing for a lot of people last year. So, another guy that could still be on.
You mean a 5'5" running back who's not very athletic, for his size is it's not going to be hyper productive. Shocking.
But yeah, not hyper productive. Year one.
5'5", 180. You're in a 4'6", 140.
So we're interested to see, but the backs are another thing there that you pay attention to, right? There's got to be opportunity for somebody, especially if you believe Zeke's cooked, and I do.
Here, my boy Royce is there though. Royce Freeman's
there, yeah. I actually saw some hype around that. One of the sleeper riders had it going.
Oh my God.
I mean, sure. I mean, he very well could. Like, he filled in decently for the Rams as a veteran now. I mean, he very well could find himself in the top 2 on that team.
I think Dallas is going to be a prime landing spot for one of these running back cuts, veteran guys that get cut at the end of preseason. I like, a la, Leonard Fournette style, where like you're going to get one shocking, cut and they're going straight to Dallas or something. Tony Pollard gets cut for some run, for whatever reason. Bringing him back home.
All right, Giants side of things, the only thing to mention is that Devin Singletary survives, and we talked about this with Tyrone Tracy, so I'm not going to dump into that a whole lot because we talked about it last week. You go back and listen with the Tyrone Tracy pick. Nothing changed of note for the Eagles, so we can skip that. The Commanders. Talked about them a little bit last week, too, so I'm not, in the interest of time, I'm not going to rehash that. We talked about Jaden Daniels, Luke McCaffrey. We know Austin Eckler was a big free agent signing there. Nothing happened to change any of that. If you want to hear about the wide receivers, go back and listen to last week's episode. Baltimore. Nothing changed here either, really, from last year. Bring in Derrick Henry. They draft Rasheen Ali late, which is going to be a cluster behind that of him. Keaton Mitchell, who was really good until he got hurt. And then Justice Hill, who they can't quit.
I will say not going wide receiver.
Good for Bateman.
Yeah, I mean, Bateman gets the extension because he doesn't qualify for the 5th-year extension because he didn't play enough games. Him and Aguilar. You let Beckham go.
Yep.
And you spend an early, day 3 pick on Duntez Walker from North Carolina, but who cares a fuck about that? And Tylan Wallace is there for special teams.
Deontay Hardy's there for special teams too. So
somebody's there for special teams. I get it. All of them are. I just steps in line more so I think for Zay because he's showing more so. Bateman can't stay healthy, and
it's great
that's
for Zay.
Going to be.
But
yeah, it's great for Zay. Obviously even better for Mark Andrews or Isaiah Likely, because there's just less target competition, but it's still a low volume passing offense that's going to probably still run through the corpse of Derrick Henry.
Yep, and should they struggle or decide to pass, then if Bateman can get a healthy season under his belt, you're looking at Bateman here for wide receiver 2, but it's not high volume passing. So, if it is, that's getting funneled through Andrews and Flowers. For
whatever reason you got cut, you can pick them up in Dynasty.
Bengals, we talked a lot about that with Jermaine Burton. Not a whole lot else to go through there. They also did not go running back, so they're going to be opening with Chase Brown and Zach Moss there.
I'm so intrigued.
I'm so intrigued by it.
I am slightly intrigued more so because I mean, obviously this is a very good offense with a healthy Burrow.
Yep.
And then healthy, Higgins and Chase coming back.
Wide receivers
Boyd's
are great.
Gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
You had Boyd leave, but you're not going to have problems finding somebody out of Jermaine Burton, Andre Yoshevitz, and Trenton Irwin to step into that role. No more than it was last year. Yeah, Higgins has an unsigned franchise tag. That'll get worked out. The running back situation here is interesting, though. This is something
I know they brought Moss in, but man, I like Chase Brown.
I like Chase Brown a lot.
And this role too.
They did too at the end of last year. Basically, can do it. And I don't think bringing Zach Moss in, given the free agent names that were available, is an indictment on can Chase Brown
I'm gonna pull up Moss's contract and get an idea of what it looks like.
Because yeah, Chase Brown into last year, not hyper efficient, but
Neither was Zach Moss.
neither was Zach Moss. And Chase is first year in the league and has the pass catching ability, which is something Moss doesn't have. So, if anything, Chase has a role, in my opinion.
Yeah, Moss won't get cut. A 2-year deal.
No, Moss isn't going to get cut, but
Moss.
Travion Williams has already lost favor to Chase Brown, and so did Chris Evans, and they didn't bring anybody else in. So Moss isn't going to get cut, but this bodes really well for Chase Brown, especially since he's going to get the receiving work because that is not part of Moss's game.
No, Moss will get first crack at the main running work with Brown has to spell back. Moss, we've known, can be ineffective at times during his ending days at Buffalo. He filled in admirably for Jonathan Taylor last year, the last couple of years, I think, but mostly last year. I just don't see Moss in a full-time role or a starter role that's going to be hyper efficient for multiple games. I think Brown has an opportunity to take a hold of that backfield, whether or not he's able to contain it too. Like, he's got to show a bit more, but I'm betting on Brown more than Moss. I'm saying that for sure.
I am too, for sure. And, again, he's only in his second year too. So you got the space. You need the roster space. Keep him on your taxi squad until
he should absolutely be on your.
You need to start him or want to start him. For the Browns, I think the only thing of note here is that they also didn't go running back anywhere. So you're running with Jerome Ford and Nick Chubb, and just keep an eye on Chubb's health throughout the offseason. But
yep,
things should be good there. They're apparently not super worried about that. Not a lot to get into with the Steelers. We talked about that with the Roman Wilson pick. I think the only thing I note here is now that things have calmed down and they shipped out Deontay Johnson, lock and load with George Pickens. That's
ain't gonna be Van Jefferson.
Nope. So Pickens is the one here, and you treat him as such. He's been ascendant the last 2 years, and they've got opportunities in there at quarterback. I think that whether Russell Wilson returns to form a little bit or Justin Fields plays, you're still upgrading over what you had. So that's just a vote of confidence for Pickens, and then Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, nothing changes there either from last year. All right, nope. Bears. This is probably the biggest one where we got to talk veterans and the effect of Rome and how that's going to shake out, at least to me. First things first, you had Rome Odunze in the first round. They brought in, what does Rome do to Keenan Allen and DJ Moore? How do you see target volume here shaking out?
I think it for sure takes Allen off in 2 receiver sets. And I think Allen could probably be the quote unquote 2 to start the season. I just don't see it being something long term. I think it's going to take at least a season or 2 for him to supplant more. But you also got to remember, Chicago's got money, and there's no reason for them to move off of Moore because they brought in Odunze. The combo of Moore and Odunze, it's a pretty deadly one too. Like it's you have the you bring in Caleb, who brings in his particular skill set. You get Moore, who is very good at getting open with extending the play. Roman's just a good all around receiver. At least on his profile, it's. I think the offense, with the offense improving, it helps more. It helps him have more of a touchdown opportunity. I think he's in terms of size, I think him and Odunze are pretty close, I think. And I just don't expect Keenan Allen to be a true red zone threat. But Moore is going to have more scoring opportunity. Extension of drives are going to definitely be there more because you have some more productive offense, at least what we expect it to be. So whatever discount there is on Moore, I take it. that's me betting into the Chicago offense and it improving. And the fact is that the NFC North, like I know it's known to be, the black and blue division like the AFC North is, but there's like all four of these teams can have very productive years offensively, and that just means just more opportunity for shootouts and more opportunity for points overall when they play each other. So it's there's going to be growing pains for sure, but Rome doesn't hurt DJ, and I've said it all along. I think he overtakes Keenan Allen a lot sooner than people think, and it wouldn't surprise me that even in week one that he is out snapping and out running and definitely being targeted more. I think Keenan will definitely have his role, but
I think Keenan, I'm with you.
Rome is that guy.
I think Keenan's the clear veteran 3 that was brought in to help with Rome.
Safety blanket,
earning skill sets.
Third down
blanket is going to help Caleb a lot.
The Anquan Bolden,
You've also got Cole Kmet here, so
who doesn't even need to operate as a safety blanket because you can have him operate in the second quadrant because he's athletic. He's obviously still young. As long as he doesn't make any dumb drops like he's shown, he's in an opportunity to where he's never going to see shaded covers. You
can't shade coverage
options over the field. It's going to be nuts
everywhere. Especially because Swift too in the receiving game is dangerous. You got options everywhere. The big point I wanted to make here, and you made it, Rome does not hurt DJ Moore. And you were going to have to adjust Keenan Allen anyway, switching teams. But Rome does not hurt DJ Moore. I agree with you. I think, if anything, the improved offense around that helps DJ Moore because of the extended drives and because of the red zone share.
They're going to have it's going to be more offensive plays.
Yep.
And I'm not saying you're going to get 2 top 12, or even 1 wide receiver 1, but there's a very realistic world where Moore and Odunze are wide receiver 2s.
Yeah. Oh, did we talk about the Jared Goff extension? The Lions?
No, we didn't.
I don't think we did.
I mean, I guess we can talk about it now.
Let's talk about it now. Jared Goff got paid.
Jared Goff, second
got
highest paid quarterback right now. He got Kirk. He got Joe Flacco'd.
And it's funny because you and I were just talking about the Jared Goff line and how that's the line of good to bad for quarterbacks because Jared Goff is neither.
The
good
joke
nor
from
bad.
Our group chat, yeah. The joke from the league chat. If you haven't won an NFC North title, are you even good, bro? I will say this. Shout out to I have been, at least on this show, I've been the I've been the anti-Goff guy, but it's more so as I just don't buy into where his own tier of quarterback, but he absolutely earned it. And I don't know if they'll ever win a Super Bowl, but he brought, like Dan Campbell, he helped to bring relevancy back to a dying franchise. And he deserves it. And I hope he continues to do well and continues to be the productive guy for Amon-Ra St. Brown and the rest of that team. He's definitely good enough to win a Super Bowl, but he's also a guy that needs to be elevated by the team. He's been to the Super Bowl. If you can get to a Super Bowl, then you're good enough to win one. That's just how it is because it's one game. The only issue here is that the NFC North is about to get extremely difficult.
Yeah, we'll talk about
all the fresh new quarterbacks brought in. So
talk about the Packers here in a second and their receiving core, and because I think that's kind of
if the Bears are the Bears,
yeah,
they'll be difficult. If the Vikings can basically take McCarthy and let him become into that tier of Goff and Cousins, then they'll be productive. You still got Dallas, you still got the Niners, you still have the Eagles, and then maybe the emergence of one of the NFC South teams, and the Rams as long as Stafford's there. It's just Detroit's best shot was probably last year, and winning the North is gonna be difficult.
Yeah,
they're so my favorites to do it, but that's because there's a lot of youth and new, but it's gonna get difficult for them.
All right, let's talk the Packers. They stand pat across the board. I think that, well, not at running back, but we talked about that last week. Their
Yep.
wide receivers they stood pat with. So you're rolling with Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Dows, Dontavia Wicks. And the interesting thing here is that the last year picks in particular of Reed and Wicks both had really good rookie seasons for no earlier than they were Reed a second round pick, Wicks a fifth. They both had good first years. And I think we were watching them saying, holy shit, the Packers are going to develop some wide receivers. While Watson's off hurt and they're getting to play. They both stepped into that role pretty nicely. Nothing has hurt them.
And Dobbs. I mean,
And
the only
Dobbs.
thing here is there is no number one. It's a
collection of
of
threes.
twos of basically maybe 1, 2, and then a bunch of threes.
Which has its
They're all
value.
worth flyers on because they've all had games where they've shown, the ability to be productive.
Yeah.
And it's just, are we going to continue to see the improvement and the emergence of Jordan Love? Are we going to get, at the end of season Jordan Love, or are we going to get the middle season Jordan Love? Like, we're still going to see how that shapes out. How does Watson get reacclimated back into this team now that he was out for most of the second? He was out for pretty much the entirety of the second half of last year. And how does that look like? Because Watson is still your big play player. He's still your hyper athletic outside guy that's going to take advantage of Reed and Dobbs and Wicks and even Bull Melton.
Yeah.
Being able to be productive in their roles. It's a crapshoot. Reed's still my guy, and I think you would agree too.
I love Jaden Reed. Yeah, absolutely. Reed's my guy.
I'm all about, and plus you have both tight ends.
Year two.
Musgrave and Kraft were productive.
They were. It's a spread
when
the
one
ball,
of them was healthy.
It's a spread the ball around offense, and you're gonna have that. But
which isn't great for fantasy because obviously you want a little more, consolidation,
funneled targets. But
yeah, it's gonna be pretty volatile at times. But
Reed was extremely.
I think
consistent.
Reed is gonna emerge as that guy.
I think so too. Reed is kind of the third of the Rice Flowers second round trio that we thought they'd be productive, and they were. Now let's see that change.
That's a camp battle. I'm going to be watching their camp battles.
I'm going to be watching Wicks and Dobbs
camp to figure out what the wide receiver room's going to look like to start.
No,
week one.
I agree completely. We pay close attention to that because
there
will be productivity there. There will be 2 or 3 guys that are going to be wide receiver 4 better, which is usable throughout the season. That's replacement level or better. So, Vikings, I don't know that we got a lot to talk about here.
There's nothing.
Yeah, they stood pat on everything.
I mean, they took their quarterback and they have no other draft capital, so easy skip.
Review.
All right. How's your vineyard ale?
All right. So you get a lot of passion fruit. It's very citrusy, very bright, very light and drinkable. It's not tart. It's not overly sweet. The light body, the heavy carbonation with the light body, and the overtly citrus and passion fruit notes really make this a refreshing drink. And then you get the very dry finish with it being white wine grapes with that very traditional feel to it, right? I can drink, like, outside of it being, there's going to be obviously some acidity to this with being wine, so it's going to be very much, you can have maybe 1 or 2, but hot day, you're out by the pool, you're out, watching the kids running around, or you're trying to mow the lawn, crack one of these up, be just fine.
Grape come out nice? Sorry, I wasn't listening to you. I was having an invasive thought that I was deciding if I should act on or not.
About what?
Um, so you know that I get involved in Wrestling for a Cure around there every July.
You do.
Usually I just show up and manage and help with the show. But they do a home run derby. And the invasive thought was that, well, I'm not a power hitter, but there's nobody playing the field in the home run derby. So if it's based on pitches, not time, I could hit an inside the park home run every time.
I thought you were going to say that you're going to be the one running out there playing outfield. You're going to be catching all the balls and they're going to hit.
I'm a heel manager. So, I mean, it would make sense for me to just hit inside the park home runs and
oh, my God.
break
That's
the
so
rules.
funny.
That was the invasive thought. So, yeah, how's the wine? How did the wine grape show up? In that?
It's good. Like I said, the passion fruit really stands out. Very, very bright. Obviously, very dry on the finish. And very light. Obviously, the heavy it is very, very heavily carbonated. But it doesn't make you too full at all. Doesn't make you feel bloated or anything. And like I was saying, the warmer weather this has a very refreshing feel to it.
Yeah. Right. Greatest oatmeal stout of all time. Look, I gotta hand it to it. I don't know if there's oatmeal stouts that like wowed me to where it's like this is the greatest version of this style at all time, but I would certainly put this up there with like Fat Pug from Maplewood or
oatmeal stout from
Schlafly's oatmeal stout.
They just don't get a lot of people that are like
because they're not flashy.
Oatmeal stout. Woo!
Yeah. Parker's or whatever it is, the name of the one that Triptych does. Like, there's some good ones.
Well, Parker's is their porter. I don't know what their oatmeal stout is.
Yeah, I could have gotten that confused. Dark beer is dark beer.
Dark beer is dark beer.
In any event, it's exactly what an oatmeal stout should be. I mean, if I were judging this, it would easily be mid-40s, which is a hell of a score. But it's got dark chocolate. It's got just a hint of coffee. It's full-bodied. It's creamy. Slight sweetness on the back end. All that's from the oats. Like, it's a really, really good beer. It could be the greatest of all time. I don't know. Like I said, I'd like to put it next to some of those other contenders that we just talked about and see how it does. But judging it on its own, just knowing what an oatmeal stout should be, yeah, no, it's really good. It's a classic example. It would be up there in some of the higher rated ones. I'll give it that. So, much beer as we drink, it's hard to like not just hear them. Goat. But you know what? They're proud of it and they should be.
I like the confidence.
Yeah, I am big on confidence.
It was like our brewmaster saying that they're going to make a hazy beer to win gold medal and then doing it. You know, you may not think so, but you gotta love the confidence in it.
You do. All right. Back to teams. All right. Tank Dell, Nico Collins. Let's talk Texans for a minute. They bring in Stephon Diggs. Don't draft anybody. Tank, obviously, good start, gets hurt, undersized receiver. Nico, incredible season for him. Really kind of latching on to the wide receiver one. Even Noah Brown, who's still there, had some big weeks through injury. Where are we at on Nico and Tank? Those are the two I probably want to focus this on.
I don't know who gets the true hurtness from Diggs. My thought would be Collins. I think Tank should we're going to see probably less of Tank operating over the middle, at least, deeper quadrants that could, get him hurt, maybe a little bit more of a deep threat just to try to keep him from taking unnecessary hits. Honestly, 1 year wonder, Nico just feel like
it feels weird, but
I want the cheaper option. I almost want Tank Dell because he's going to be the cheapest of the three. Having a piece of this offense is fine, but how much do we think Stroud's going to improve on last year? And last year he was fine, but I think people overinflate because he was a rookie
It was good for a rookie, but you said you expect him to prove over year or not. Let's go through it, or at least sustain the same level of performance. So let's go through it, right? You had for CJ
I
Stroud.
think into your stats he could for sure.
Yeah, well, and that's the whole package. 64% completion. That's not so high. You don't think he can repeat it or even improve on it, right? 4,100 yards, same thing. 4.6 touchdown rate, same thing. 1.0 interception rate is the thing that jumps out. That's incredibly low, especially for a rookie. That's like even your Brady's and your Mannings or and your Rodgers or
You expect
1-3,
that to
1-4,
probably
so
jump
that'll
up
probably
to
jump
around
up a little bit, but
to around
not
probably around
significantly.
2, maybe high 1 and like high ones.
High to mid ones.
But even then, it's the expectation. I would not be surprised if Stroud goes through a sophomore slump, or at least goes through parts of the year where it's maybe not the full season. Like I said, I think into season stats, I think will look a bit better. But the AFC South also improved, and their team itself improved. I'm just saying I wouldn't be shocked that there is some sophomore slump to his game, but the addition of Diggs does kind of help.
So
maybe try to combat that, because Diggs he's a known number one. He could definitely be productive when the targets are like, he is someone that is very comfortable playing in an alpha role.
Yeah.
And has done it through multiple seasons.
I mean, you're in Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins type of territory with CJ Stroud. That's kind of what you're running into here statistically with that first season.
You're just hoping that he
can
hit a
rookie
that
because
ceiling
there's the
tier, right? Yeah.
So you just hope that he goes up, a little bit higher, even if the interceptions go up, that touchdown rate climbs closer to 5. They've added to the running game. That should probably help that a bit. But there's nothing there that was so high it was unsustainable, I think was the point I wanted to drive home there. So do I expect a lot of
I'm fine with that.
No.
Yeah.
Do I expect a lot of improvement, which was your question? How much can he really improve? I think he can improve on this incrementally. I don't think you're going to see it all in one day. I think that you will probably see he missed a game, so your attempts is going to climb up over 500. You'd really want that to be to support through wide receivers. You would want him to go up by 50 or 60 attempts there.
He needs to get closer to 600.
He's got to get closer to 600 or at least high 550s. You want that
Yeah.
touchdown rate to go up from 4.6 closer to 5. That interception rate's organically going to go up probably to 1 point, like you said, 1.6 to 1.8, I'd guess. So he can get better. The volume can be higher. Diggs was a shell of himself last year, though. And I don't think that the emergence of Nico that you mentioned, so I want to go back to him real quick. Tank Dell, great start to his career.
Yeah.
He's undersized, but great start to his career, and you hope that he can keep doing that. Going back to Nico, third-year receiver, and it's not like it was a sudden snap for what he did necessarily. He had injury issues the first 2 years before finally being relatively healthy last year. He had a massive quarterback improvement around him, but the underlying numbers were not significantly different. Yards per reception was a little bit better, but I think you can almost correlate what we saw out of Nico. Maybe catch percentage goes down some, but I think you can correlate what we saw out of him more so to the improvements in the quarterback and the offense and his health than to him just having this sudden, massive jump of a breakout that's completely
So him and Dell were pretty much identical before Dell got hurt.
They were.
Very, very similar production. You throw Diggs in there, and even Diggs at 30 years old, this is another fresh start. The frustrations with Buffalo were definitely there. And then the transition of their offensive coordinator leaving when Ken Dorsey left and the team went in a different direction offensively also could have built in that frustration. Diggs does definitely share a brunt of the blame there, but
it hurts everyone. But how much does it hurt everyone?
It should actually bump up Stroud. Like, if we all think that these guys are going to be at least a wide receiver 3 if they're all healthy, in theory, Stroud goes up, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're showing they should throw the ball more. You bring in a guy like Diggs.
No, you're right.
Bring in a guy who could obviously elevate the offense
more than 520
You're probably going to throw the ball
times.
more. Yeah, which is why, we both agree that his interception will probably come up because he'll probably be a bit more aggressive in year 2. I have no clue how the target's going to break out. And for Nico and Tank, the trade for Stefan will suppress their ADP down enough to where maybe all three of them are worth drafting. I think the answer is just to take the cheapest one.
Yeah.
Because we've seen what Shaw can do in an offense.
Nico wasn't
and what he can support.
Unsustainable target share, really, even with Diggs there. He was at 22%, so he wasn't like super high by any means.
With Tank, I'm pretty sure they were both the same with their target share.
Tank was a little bit lower. Tank was 20.4. Nico was 22. And then Noah Brown obviously filling into that role. I think he was.
Well, I think it's more so when Tank was healthy. They were both very, very much the same. Nico's going to end the year with a higher target share. He should.
Yeah. No, it's a percentage. He should.
Yeah.
Noah Brown was. Hold on.
It's also extremely difficult to assume you're going to have thrry wide receivers at over 20%, which is pretty much. I won't say it's impossible. Yeah. But that's like absurd elite level of offense. Someone's gonna take a step back, and my guess would be Dell would make the most sense, but I think that's gonna be baked into his ADP too. And I think all three staying healthy is
maybe you see Dell drop to 18 and Nico drop to 20 and Brown become pretty much not used unless somebody's hurt. It is 16%.
He's 2 injuries, yeah.
I don't think you're gonna see Diggs up near 30 in this offense.
Oh God, no. Diggs will probably be. I think Diggs at that 22 to 25.
Yeah.
Because I think historically Diggs is at 25%.
Yeah.
And wide receivers at this stage, we definitely have seen a drop off, but Diggs' skill set and the way that he plays the position should have him age a little more gracefully than, let's say, Des Bryant. I don't think he gets Buffalo target share. His competition for targets is absolutely better than what he had there. It's higher or stronger.
It is. With all those guys.
But I can see Nico and Tank kind of also being kind of similar, especially if Stroud wants to push the ball vertically. I think that's going to be. I don't know.
Diggs may take a bit from Schultz too. I think is the other thing of note here.
Schultz, yes, you're right. He just got paid too.
He's probably going to take a bit from Schultz.
God damn it, this team.
Yeah, and how much is Mixon going to be involved? It's going to be interesting. I think the idea here, though, is that Diggs probably does take a little bit of the fire out of Tank and Nico. I think that Tank will be cheaper. I don't think it tanks any of their value entirely. I just think that you're not going to expect them to grow on what they did last year. I think
it's okay to have
a little regression. If Nico regresses from 1,200 yards to just over 1,000, still wide receiver 2 territory. That's fine.
If Stroud does regress, I'll be more concerned because that'll affect everyone.
Stroud needs to be close to 600 targets this year, or 600 attempts, not 600 targets.
I think we can predict that at least one of these guys is going to miss time. Tank's 160 soaking wet. So
and Nico's been hurt 2 of the first 3 years, and
So you want to have all 3. I think it's very worth taking the shot in one of them. Thankfully, with Diggs going there, Nico's not a top, top 2 round pick anymore.
Yeah,
which was pretty high.
All right, really got nothing to talk about with the Colts. Let's go on to the Jaguars. Ryan Thomas Jr., first round pick. Both of us really, really like him near the back end of the first in your rookie drafts. Christian Kirk had been miscast as a 1 for a while, and then they bring in Gabe Davis. What does the addition of Brian Thomas Jr. and Gabe Davis do to Christian Kirk? That's the first thing I want to focus on. Or is it anything because the presence of Calvin Ridley just got replaced with those 2?
Yeah, I think Kirk I don't think anything changes. I think more so you could see probably even more favorable coverage. Thomas's role with LSU was to operate towards the boundary and just work deep, short area. Like he's going to have to also go through his growing pains of learning a true NFL route tree. Gabe Davis, we know exactly who he is, but he is one of the better vertical threats, especially with a quarterback like Lawrence. I think Kurt's fine. Jacksonville just needs to get better, and Lawrence especially needs to get healthy and then needs to take that jump. Right? Ryan was never Ron with Lawrence has been underwhelming to start his career, even before he got hurt. The addition of Doug Peterson didn't change it as much as I think a lot of us would have liked or even expected. So Lawrence takes that next step. I think Hurt will pay off on his ADP because his ADP is going to be hurt by the addition of Thomas. Gabe Davis probably finds himself as a undrafted bench player now on most people's squads, but I think Hurt's going to be a value. I haven't checked any ADP. I haven't done any best ball, so I'm not really sure where those guys are landing now.
We'll have time to get
I can almost promise you that Brian Thomas is probably going before Christian Kirk. And Kurt, I think, is the guy to have to start the year.
Yeah.
As Thomas kind of goes through the ebb and flows of being a rookie wide receiver, a number one, and then also probably taking on more of a route tree.
Well, and even Gabe Davis.
A bigger tree. And Gabe. Sure.
Let's talk about Gabe Davis. Even
yes, let's talk about Gabe Davis.
Could be decent. And I said that based on this. Gabe Davis was used in almost a pure deep role in Buffalo. And I think that Gabe Davis probably has more to him than that. But I think that's the role that he was asked to play. I
mean, he had opportunity to be more of a one when Diggs would miss time, and it's just he got games where he got volume, and it just wasn't pretty.
It's never been below 15 though, and games when he got volume. Let's look at that. So last year, the games where he had more than 8 targets, is that a good cutoff, or do you want to do 7? What do you consider?
No, I think it's got to be at least 8 because if what you think his role is going to be, it's going to be probably more of a flanker, like
7 to 8 targets, right? So let's go with 7
base
for just for fun.
Okay, that's fine.
Games got more than 7 targets, 6 receptions, 792 and a touchdown. 6 of 8, 100 and a touchdown. 9 of 12, 87 and a touchdown. 2 of 6 for 56 and a touchdown. I'll throw 6 in there too, just for fun. 6 of 12, 105 and a touchdown. 4 of 6, 130 and a touchdown. It was the volume difference. That's just last year, right? So there's no game in there where he had more than 6 targets where he left you feeling disappointed. It was the games where he had 2, 3, 1, 2, 2, 5, 4, 3, 4, 4 that you feel bad about. Going back to 2022, let's look at that real quick. I'll keep 6 targets as a cutoff. 3 of 6 for 37, not great. 3 of 6 for 171 and 2. 3 of 6 for 74 and 1. 2 of 7 for 35, all right, maybe not great. 6 of 10, 93 and 1. 5 of 7 for 68, that's okay. That's still 12 PPR points. You're fine with that. 2 of 7 for only 15 yards, but a touchdown saved his day there. Even your elites have that. 4 of 6 for 56. So, there's been a couple, 3 or 6 for 45 and 1. There's been a couple games. I'm going to wrap this up. There's 3 games over the last 6 years where he's been over 7 targets, and you felt disappointed by that. More consistent volume for Gabe Davis, especially with the big body, is not a bad thing.
I just don't think he's going to get that in this.
You can't extrapolate it. You cannot extrapolate it. But Calvin Ridley gone. I mean, will won't he? A lot of that depends on Trevor Lawrence, right? You can make that same argument for him that we did for Stroud. He threw 560 times last year. He's got to get a little bit better. But, you had target share that, a lot of it was going to Calvin Ridley. Good chunk. Who else did they lose? Was it Chark? No, not Chark. Who else was there last year?
Zay Jones.
That's it. Zay Jones. Evan Ingram was a 143 target person. Do you think with the wide receiver core that they just added in that they want to throw to Evan Ingram 143 times?
I think that though I don't think Evan Ingram's role is greatly impacted.
I don't think
he operates in a different part of the field. I mean, he may not get the hype, but I mean, what you also pointed out, but Davis is throughout his entire career, he's not a target guy.
130.
Sure, if you
He
bet that his
wasn't
role
a target
changes
guy
through
in-
4 seasons,
Wasn't a target guy in Buffalo. I'm willing to bet that Peterson wants to use him differently than what he would use in
fine.
Buffalo under Josh Allen
Again,
offense.
thankfully,
because it's
he's not a
the
6-round
same.
price like he's used to be.
No,
He's free probably, which is good.
yeah,
'Cause-
and that's the only argument, right? I'm not saying that you're taking Gabe Davis as a wide receiver 2, but as 3 that could see more consistent volume. And Calvin Ridley just vacated 136 targets.
Ridley was also highly inconsistent with his target volume,
He
which we
was.
went through when we talked about that, which is Davis, which I think at times can be Kurt. Again, this is because the inconsistency of the passing game. Lawrence all over the place. He can be. I know he battled injuries, but that's been who he's been since he was drafted. It's just you don't get the consistent game over game. We saw a bit of that in year 1 of Doug Peterson, but last year, even before injury, it's the touchdown upside. I don't think it's there yet. I think we want it to be. Davis is a better deep threat than what he's had so far. I will absolutely give you that. I don't see. It's hard for me to predict or to see a world in which he switches up the way that like Mike Williams switched up and became more of a traditional one. I mean, maybe he will, and I'll be glad to take the L if that happens because, again,
Saying
you
it's
don't have
not
to bet
out of
on
the
it.
realm of possibility, especially if you believe that Brian Thomas is going to reprise his LSU role.
I mean, I think Brian Thomas would work towards more of a traditional one, probably role, but I think that's why they draft him in the first round, right? Maybe he won't. Maybe he'll struggle. Maybe he won't. And then
maybe that's a year 1
might
or
be
year 2
Dave.
thing. I don't think
yeah,
Davis is surpassing him, but I think that could you get a little bit more consistency out of him in this offense, and maybe across the same target volume if they're not trying to just
Lawrence throws
work
the
him
ball
deep
more
all the time.
to him.
Well,
Yeah.
if Lawrence throws the ball more, if you extrapolate Evan
Is he
Ingram
more
to his
accurate than probably
volume,
Josh Allen?
Yeah,
That'd be also the thing. I think
Well,
he's probably
I think I want to say yes. He
the
also-
intermediate world.
other hard part
I think he is.
so bad, but he was playing with a high ankle strain when he looked really, really bad. Like he came back
Yeah,
from that in
yeah.
1 game and then looked terrible for a pretty big stretch.
Yes. They bought too hard to try to fight for a spot they were never going to get. They're trying to maintain their one spot, so I get it, but
Yeah. And he's
yeah.
and he's got to be better and he's got to be more efficient. But I don't think obviously you're not giving him all of Ridley's 136 targets. You're not giving him. I think there's no way.
Well,
Evan
no one's
Ingram
going to really get
reprises
that.
143 targets either. With
Between the
addition of
loss,
Thomas and Davis, I don't think there's any way Evan Ingram reprises 143 targets.
I
100?
honestly though, like between the
100?
loss of Ridley and Zay Jones, like you can't just. No one's going to get all of those one player targets either.
No, they're not.
I wouldn't surprise you
You spread
know,
them out.
if
so
Evan Ingram gets the same
Zay
amount.
Jones
It wouldn't shock me.
had 64 targets. You had what are your vacated targets here that need to go somewhere? It's close to 200 between Zay Jones and
You get a
Calvin
healthier
Ridley.
You get a healthier Travis Etienne too, who will probably take some pass catching work.
You spread that out. Is it unreasonable to say that with 200 vacant targets that Brian Thomas sees somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 and Gabe Davis sees 80 to 90? Probably not.
I mean, are you excited? I mean, yeah, but I mean, are we pumped that Gabe Davis is getting 80 or 90 targets? Is that draftable?
I think
In a redraft? Because I
so.
don't think so. Like,
Where was that
that's the problem.
Let's see.
Is that
Where was that
it's
cutoff last year? Let's go look. See, I like it when we can debate each other directly without having to worry about Ryan getting his words in. No,
because Ryan talked a lot when we did do this.
not because he not because he talked a lot.
He was
but
respectful, I
because
guess.
It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with me feeling bad because I'm not giving
That
airspace.
too. I would try to feel bad. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
That's more where it is. Oh, got the pros.
I somehow won't be surprised if Evan Ingram leads his team in targets. I think that's mostly going to be if Brian Thomas doesn't take off this year in year one, which I think is not fair to
I don't think Evan
expect.
Ingram leads in targets. I think he still sees, high target volume. I still think he's near 100 targets, maybe even 120. I just don't see him getting up that high anymore. Was that higher volume?
Yes. He also missed time. Kelsey missed a couple games, I think, last year too.
2 games and had 121. So even if you extrapolate that out, that's still higher volume than Kelsey. So
I just wouldn't. It just wouldn't shock me the way that you're not shocked if Gabe sees a more expanded wide receiver role. Evan Ingram in the same role in an improved offense as a whole with 200 targets. You can also twist the same argument around. Why would Evan Ingram lose targets when there's already 200 lost targets? It's not all going to go to 2 players.
It's not all going to go to 2 players, but you kind of spread them out, and you got a new guy in there that you're figuring is going to get 100 plus from somewhere, right? So, or 2 new guys in there. So maybe he doesn't lose targets, but maybe he does. I don't think they want to funnel all that.
We're going to camp battle watch the fuck out of this. That's all I know. I can't wait for preseason Gabe Davis to go for 7 targets, 6 catches for 64 yards. It's all right, possession receiver Gabe Davis, let's go. It's what no one wants because we like him for his upside, his big playability. And Lawrence is not a far drop off from Josh Allen in that department.
I just went to MLB stats. I don't think we're doing that on this show.
I don't think Gabe. I mean, maybe there's a Gabe Davis, hitter out there.
Maybe. All right, here we go.
There's a lot of baseball players.
Wide receiver target. So you would be you're in the 90 target range. You're with Jaden Reed, Cooper Kupp, Romeo Dobbs, Tyler Boyd, Josh Downs, that group. Which is it super sexy? No. Is it terrible? Also, no.
I guess it depends when it obviously depends when the production comes and how it comes. There is an absolute world. I will give you this. There's an absolute world that Gabe Davis in a 3 or 4 week span, maybe 2 to 3 to 4 week span, that he is getting targets and production and being productive. That is an absolute reality because he's done it. And maybe a change of scenery, a change of coaching staff, and a change of quarterback, maybe that changes. Maybe that does. There's an absolute world that could happen. Or there's a world that he's the same player that he was in Buffalo, and just a deep threat with some target opportunity.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a fun discourse.
Yeah, always is. All right, we'll move on from Jacksonville.
No, Titans. Do we have to talk about Tennessee? I don't think we do we?
Is Tennessee could be I don't think we do. They
brought in Boyd and
Ridley. They didn't draft anybody.
Rip Burks. Nope.
Still have Burks. They brought in Tony Pollard as a Derrick Henry replacement and didn't draft anybody. So maybe we do. I don't know, man. I don't know what to make out of this offense other than I think it's going to
I'm fine skipping this. I'm fine. This offense goes with Will Levis, and you have basically Pollard and Spears are very similar backs.
Yeah. I want to look more into when you previews, what is Nick Foles all about? What's Brian Callahan all about? And, what do we need to change on our thinking of what we've known for Bravel? Because I think we associate a team a lot with style of game the coach wants to play. So, does Tennessee suddenly change offensive philosophies? And I think that's what we do.
That's a good point. And I believe Brian Callahan's he's been a coach before. Yeah, I know he's been an OC. Pretty sure. I mean, we can look into that when we're doing division or team previews. So.
Yeah, I don't know everybody's history. Oh, he was the Bengals OC. So yes, their philosophy probably does change quite a bit.
It's still Will Levis, though.
Yeah, don't really need to talk about Atlanta. We've beat that to death.
Yeah.
We should be talking about Atlanta. Not.
No. It's fine.
All right, Carolina.
This is worth it.
Yeah. All right.
With 2 high draft picks on 2 offensive playmakers.
Yep. So Jonathan Brooks comes in with Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders. In that room, Xavier Leggett comes in with Adam Thielen and then Deontay Johnson, who was signed, and then Jonathan Mingo from last year. Obviously a lot of this hinges around Bryce Young taking a big step year 2 because year 1 was not good. I've got Brooks immediately over Hubbard. I think I'm not a Hubbard fan. I've never put a lot of value on Hubbard, but I've got Brooks immediately over Hubbard.
Hubbard he's been fine. He was fine as a replacement for the CMAC injuries. He was the most productive back in this backfield last year, which isn't saying much.
Yeah. Okay.
I honestly will say, though, it's that the fact that he's been easily viable for fantasy. Early season, I think he's going to take up a lot of work. It just really depends where Brooks is in terms of where he's at physically and up to NFL speed. He's still recovering from his ACL tear, and now he's a rookie in the NFL on a bad offense that there's some hype around because they've made some moves that people are excited for, especially from the coaching department. Can Brooks' body actually handle to a full season workload? I know that ACL tears are a bit fluky, but one full season of production and then he gets hurt in that season. So I think Hubbard is definitely a part of this backfield. I agree. I think Brooks should be the starter, but it doesn't shock me that Bobby Chuba is going to have a role early on. And then if Brooks is as good as we think he is, he'll send because cream rises to the top, baby. And the Panthers are going to want to have exposed. They're going to want to have that some like excitement. And we know that Chuba doesn't bring excitement.
No,
and hopefully Brooks will.
Chuba doesn't bring excitement even to the front
office.
Doesn't.
His name doesn't even bring excitement.
That's
like,
why they
really?
signed Miles Sanders last offseason and then just been to second round capital on a broken running back this offseason.
I mean, Miles Sanders is all like
they don't even want to be excited.
The drop off in efficiency was even more than I thought it'd be for Sanders.
Yeah. They don't want to be excited about Chuba Hubbard. Deontay Johnson is a nothing burger to me in this offense. He is always been boosted by a lot of volume. That you want to talk about somebody who didn't do anything with their volume. Deontay Johnson deserves to wear that crown pretty heavily. Is somebody that never did anything with their volume.
Just only had to play with a hobbled Big Ben and then whatever the corpse of Mason Rudolph.
I don't know that it would have mattered.
Kenny Pickett. Did the situation get better? Barely, if it did.
I don't even know that it did.
You're probably right. And he has probably better target competition. Maybe.
Like it,
he was able to get targets.
Pickens, but
well, I mean, like even before Pickens, even when it was Chase Claypool, before he became a fucking dirtbag.
Chase Claypool, who's done nothing anywhere else at all.
He's going up against a rookie receiver and the corpse of Adam Thielen. Like
that's true.
Rookie receiver. Talking about target competition, he can definitely earn targets, and that's
he can
more than what Gabe Davis can say.
He's not going to get funneled them like he was in Pittsburgh.
I hope not, because I agree. I don't enjoy watching Deontay Johnson play, but I enjoy watching targets.
I want to like the Panthers.
There's upside of targets.
The owner is gross.
I don't want
and the running back room is gross. Other than Brooks,
I'm rooting for Xavier Leggett because everyone's against
for Leggett too. But
I want Leggett. He's going to be cheap and everywhere. He'll be like a 10th round pick probably in fantasy.
He's going to have the opportunity to be a 1. Completely and entirely.
Well, if they don't, coach speak us to death with it, they definitely have shown their cards and how much they like him. So hopefully that can extrapolate to.
We don't have to talk about the Saints at all because they've done nothing.
Yep.
We don't really need to talk about the Bucs, I don't think.
No, because it's
McMillan's
not going to replace. They're not going to replace the starters.
No, and they're not.
I don't buy in the Irving the way that you don't buy in the Chuba. I'm not buying into Irving.
I don't know that there's a lot to buy into with Irving. He had a good pass catching profile, which in this class isn't saying much. He didn't test well athletically, and your bet on him to have any form of productivity is that he can be a better, more efficient receiver than Rachaad White, which is where Rachaad White struggles. That's
with
hardly
efficiency,
a safe bet. Yeah. So
Yeah. As a runner, more not as much as a passer.
Yeah.
I think he's a little more efficient as a passer.
Irving or
No, White.
White.
White's more efficient as a pass catcher than he is as a runner.
He's not very efficient as a pass catcher either.
I know the bar's low, but that's what.
And I mean,
he's
that in
less
terms
shit
of what he does
than
with the
he is
ball.
gold.
His hands are fine.
I know.
Not talking
I know.
about
His hands are
I'm
definitely
talking about
fine.
what he does with the
Yeah,
ball
yeah.
in his hand. That's
He looks like he's running through mud
he
sometimes,
does not
man.
create.
And I love
there.
Rachaad White, but I think we've jumped. I think the community jumped the shark on him. So
Yep.
he's become a sell, sadly.
All right, Denver Broncos. I don't know that Troy Franklin comes in. I guess we can talk about that. He's going to have competition with Reynolds and Marvin Mims. Sutton underwhelming the last couple of years. So I don't know. This offense,
the whole offense
has
been underwhelming.
That really moves. Tim Patrick's always hurt. Brandon Johnson had some flashes last year. It's entirely underwhelming here.
Nothing
moved.
This Sean Payne's fired mid-season. That's my prediction. It's not. He won't be, but
he should.
I hope he is when this team hasn't won a game and they're 0-8.
There's nothing inspiring about this team, and nothing's really changed either.
I just want Zach Wilson to beat Bo Nix.
Yeah,
I can't believe I flipped the corner. I'm gonna be rooting for Zach Wilson again. This feels weird.
I'll root for both of them.
I know you will.
All right, let's talk about the Chiefs wide receiver room. Rashee Rice obviously has legal trouble going on. It's not anything severe enough to where I think you get a ton of impact to his dynasty value. You could see some suspensions this year. They bring in Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy. They're obviously designed to fix the deep ball problems. I don't know that interferes with Rashee Rice a lot, but let's talk about it. With Rashee Rice being the lead target getter, not lead target getter, but the best wide receiver. How does that impact Rice? How does that impact Kelsey? Brown and Worthy come in, and how do those guys fight with each other's roles?
I do think the off-field stuff definitely impacts Rice, even for Dynasty. Like just with the ongoing charges and then getting more shit onto his name. Like there's an easy path to where there's a path that's definitely there that he can be out for half the season. They like him, second round pick. It obviously flashed, but like it wasn't a first round pick and he wasn't flashy. If Rice can play most of his games though, I think he is the next guy in line to be the big target getter. That's kind of his style of play. That's where he operates over the field. He works in similar areas with Travis Kelsey. Hollywood, brought in as kind of the same veteran type of feel that maybe Keenan Allen's going to do for Chicago, and Brown just kind of brings in the comfort of being a one in an offense, consistency with his production. He's kind of like a lighter Brandon Cooks, right? Like he hasn't hit the Brandon Cooks highs because the offense he's been a part of just hasn't gotten to that point. Obviously with the Ravens, and then with the hobbled, Cardinals team the last couple of years, and he himself being hurt. Worthy's the one where he can be all over the place. I think he starts off as that deep threat, and I think there's a world in which he takes over as the primary, target guy. I think in the Chiefs world, that's what they want. It's just how much development time do they need, and how does the impact of his early role, like how long does that last for, and are teams going to still respect the deep shots that they're going to take with Worthy? Like he's not going to step into a Tyreek Hill right away, but roll right away when Hill, just really took off in that offense. But it could by week 12, 13 this season, it could, especially if Rice is off the field for most of the first half of the year.
And if Rice is off the field, that's going to open up a ton of opportunity for Sky Moore to slide into that role.
And Brown,
and
if Brown stays healthy, he absolutely could.
Yeah,
he's more comfortable on that role, at least.
Yeah.
Remote.
The thing with
from just prediction.
the thing with Brown and Rice or Worthy is that their primary role is something completely different than what you get out of Rashi Rice, and Rashi Rice and Travis Kelsey kind of handle similar portions of things. Rice is something that the Chiefs hadn't had in a while, which is a volume type of receiver over the middle, which we saw that.
What if Travis Kelsey's role just? What if that role just
starts to evaporate?
Less.
Yeah,
because he's 36.
No, I think.
What if
will.
he just doesn't have that role anymore because he's old?
I think it naturally will start to evaporate, and more of that goes towards Rice and a little bit of Brown. But I also think that the Chiefs didn't have receivers that they could trust in those deep roles, which I think led to more targets for Rice and Andy Reid modifying how he was running the offense.
That's fair.
Versus how he may have done it with a Tyreek Hill. And now that could swing back the other way. We saw how Juju was used on that team, for example, before Rashi Rice. And it wasn't a ton of volume. I think that you end up in a situation where with Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, who both have trustable hands, unlike anything they had last year, more of that volume is going deep. Rice is going to see some fall out there, regardless of the off-field issues, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, Kelsey, I think, I don't know if the regression continues, but I don't think it gets any better from where it was last year. And, as far as Worthy and Brown, they're going to be hyper efficient, and I love them both in best ball. But
I mean, this very obviously fun best ball stacks.
Targets could be a little inconsistent between the two of them, though, too.
Well, that's why you take them. That's why best ball is fine, because you're not taking them. You're taking them late enough to be paired with your more of your volume receivers.
Exactly.
Anyways, but again, I can see a world in which Kelsey is a heavy target guy to start the year, and just because he's getting older and that efficiency drops off, has definitely have dropped off from what we saw last year. I know he battled with injuries, but Brown is probably the best receiver they've had in this backfield since Hill. I like Brown. As long as Brown is healthy, he can be more than like he can, like again, he can be kind of Brandon Cooks light.
Yeah.
And that's probably good enough in this offense where they're desperate to get that third quadrant opened up again and see if teams are going to test, the deep shots more. And then to see Worthy not just get deep shots, but to see him get over the middle, short area work and see how his role in the offense evolves. Because again, by second half of the season, he could be the number one.
He could be. All right. Keep it moving from that. By the way, Rashi Rice last year, volume, was 102. So it's not like he had a ton anyway.
It was really late
that
work
wasn't
too.
Great, yeah. And you had Travis Kelsey up near 120, and then some of these other guys who I don't even know who their third highest target getter was. It was Justin
like you look
Watson at 53. Valdez Scantling had 42, Tony with 38. So, a lot of these guys that they were trying to work into deep roles, 120, 130. So, there's not exactly a boatload of target volume bad way. That's just another thing to keep in mind. Mahomes did throw about 50 times less than he has any other season in his career. So, probably
it's tough to throw the ball a lot when
thing is
the offense is stagnant and their defense, the best defense he's had in his career.
Only talking 180, 190 targets maybe if you take a couple away to go between Hollywood and Worthy and whatever increase you may have thought for Rice, which is why I don't think Rice is going up any.
I like the end of the year from week 12 on. Rice had 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 games of 10 or more and 1, 2, 3 games with 9. And this is going into the playoffs as well. Its role is expanded. It's just, this is obviously before all the off the field stuff came out. So
and it's also before
his role may be less because of it.
It's also before they added trustworthy deep threats.
Yeah.
Which him too.
In theory should help in theory, but Brown and Worthy are guys that are just beyond more of a true deep threat. It's not like you're adding
And
exactly.
I don't think that with Rashee Rice and the type of player he is, I don't think you're getting added efficiency out of that, right? That when you say somebody should help, you're looking at added efficiency. If it's not added target volume, that's the other way that you get help is added efficiency. This is still a guy that had a 77.5% catch rate on those 102 targets.
Well, I don't
Near
expect
12
his
yards of
efficiency to
reception,
go up.
7 touchdowns.
It might go
So
down.
efficiency is probably going, not going up. Let's put
But
it that way. It will
no,
probably
but
go
it does
down,
open.
and I expect
Yeah,
the target
it
volume
does.
to go down. So
I could see his yards per catch going up though too, right? Because
maybe
you're gonna have,
but-
you're gonna be sending guys in the third quadrant into that field. It's gonna open up the middle of the field even more than what it was.
So
in an offense that struggled to have deep threat receivers.
So let's say it bumps up to 14 or 15, and you take away 10 targets and you drop his catch rate to 67%, which is still really respectable. You're essentially net even. So
maybe touchdowns go up, but he was also pretty
he had
good
7
touchdown guy last year.
Yeah. So
yeah, the offense gonna get better. God, Rice, you stay out of trouble, man.
Offense is gonna
Seriously,
get better.
it's as easy as it is.
But
Just stay out of trouble.
Kind of my caution on Rashee Rice there is that the addition of those two does cap some things. I'm not saying it'll get worse. I'm saying I don't know how much more ceiling that added.
Rice is not a 1. We can definitely say that.
No, he never
he's
should
a
have
profile 2. Worthy's the guy that can be a 1, and I even caution that too.
Yep. Nothing to really talk about with the Raiders unless you want to talk Powers and Mayer for a second, but I think we did enough of that.
No, I'm fine.
Chargers. Oh boy.
Oh my God.
This is ugly.
There's so many rookies. So many rookies on this team.
Yeah. Brendan Rice,
Oh my God.
McConkey. You get rid of Keenan Allen. Josh Palmer is still there. Quentin Johnson's there, who didn't do anything. Here's the thing. Josh Palmer may open as their 1 to start the season.
It could be Quentin Johnston.
It
could be the guy they spent a first-round pick on last year.
It could be. They could try to funnel him.
I don't think it's any of these guys because I think they're going to just run the ball a fuck ton. But it could be Brendan Rice for all we know because his dad's cool.
Palmer's. All I'll just say is that super
it could
productive.
be DJ Chark.
Josh Palmer, super productive when given opportunities last year, and he's the veteran, right? He's the guy that's produced in the past, so it's been sparingly. Like, only when he wasn't hurt and had good opportunity. But at the same time, like, am I betting on Ladd McConkey over that, especially over earlier in the season? No. Am I betting on Quentin Johnston, who failed to show any type of meaningful flash, even though he was a first-round pick? I'm a Bears fan. I lived through Kevin White. No. So, where am I going to look? DJ Chark, who had one big season, fell off. Darius Davis, Brendan Rice. I mean, if I'm betting anybody,
it's nobody.
Palmer.
The answer is probably nobody.
Somebody's got to be the 1 on the team. Not a 1 in fantasy. Somebody's going to be target volume. The targets have to go somewhere. That's been an argument of ours every year. The targets got to go somewhere.
The targets have to go somewhere. No, I agree.
So
I don't know who.
Right.
Make a point for Palmer.
Yep.
Since Palmer has been drafted, they've drafted multiple receivers in day 1 and day 2.
Different regime.
A different regime, which doesn't help him.
Yeah.
And you and I don't believe in Ladd McConkey, as a lot of people do.
No, we don't.
Now, where Ladd excels in, though, is short area bursts. And if there's anyone that's going to play a Jim Harbaugh probably type of role just to get easy targets, I mean, because there's no Michael Crabtree on this team, so he doesn't have a true alpha 1 yet, which is, I was surprised they took Ladd in the second round. But
well, I think it's
a lot of running the football.
It's a pretty safe bet that Josh Palmer is going to see more than his 60 targets from a year ago.
I think there's a world in which Palmer and Quentin and Ladd see over 100 targets
each.
Because
it's only 300 attempts.
And they're all going to probably and they're all going to be all over the place because there'll probably be some injuries, and it's going to be one of those worlds where it's like they just weren't productive with them. Because Palmer got some targets, he
got hurt for part of last year.
Hurt. The offense sucked, but
Yeah.
he was also kind of their vertical guy, which I just don't trust a vertical guy in a
Well,
horrible offense for whatever reason. That
but they're
just
also
doesn't
just
bring me
going to run
joy.
the ball, so let's talk about that too. J.K.
Hey,
Dobbins has been
Thank you.
unreliable to stay on the field. Gus Edwards has been relatively reliable, but inefficient if that. Then you bring Kamani Vidal, who's a day 3 pick. So, all right, they're just going to run the football. Who's running the football? Is Dobbins healthy
I guess we're
and deficient?
betting on the Baltimore backs because at least they're familiar with the Greg Roman offense, which is with all these 6th-round pick, dude. The dude could be practice squad, and it doesn't. The discourse doesn't even matter.
No.
We know that Spiller sucks. We're not worried about Spiller, but
Vidal is absolutely a flyer you need to be taking.
he is, because as you mentioned, Dobbins hard time sitting on the field. Edwards has been reliable but not efficient.
Right.
But again, he gets a similar offense in which he was productive in. He just doesn't have Lamar Jackson. He doesn't have a quarterback where the team has to legitimately be concerned about him on every given play as a runner, whether it be drop back and run or a pure designed run play with them.
And Harbaugh, 2 things there too. Harbaugh's volume and Roman's volume running attack, but at the same time, Gus Edwards has never had 200 carries. Never had more than 13 targets. Herbert isn't Jackson, so they're going to rely on their backs to run more. They're going to rely on their backs to probably receive more. J.K. Dobbins isn't necessarily that either. So,
Rodell at some point will get run. That's why you need to draft him.
you do.
In your rookie drafts. He needs to be taxi squad. And in rookie drafts, he's still 2 injuries away.
There's no back here that's ever carried a load. So,
yeah. But he's still 2 injuries away. That's the kind of back that at this point he is, and there's a good chance he could get there.
Yeah. He has 2 injuries.
He's going to get drafted a lot. He's going to get drafted and probably dropped a lot in redraft. Just
yeah, but 2 injuries away with J.K.
J.K.
Dobbins and Gus Edwards is not unheard of.
As said,
ask Keaton Mitchell.
It's not the worst 2 injury away guy, but we also have no idea how this offense is going to look.
This offense is
I'm really going to be excited about a guy who doesn't also catch a lot of passes.
Nah, it's going to be a total crapshoot because, like you said, well, maybe they'll run the ball a lot, and then you go look at who they have as their runners, and nobody's ever had 200 carries. And it's like, all right, what are they going to do? Who is going to emerge from this? What is going to ride?
And even if they run a lot, are they going to score touchdowns?
You look at anybody on this roster and be like,
pass catchers.
Yeah, that's the cream.
Don't have any pass catchers on this team.
Rise to the cut. It's Hayden Hurst. I'm saying it now. We're just going to run
Will Dissly. Will Dissly is the slated starter.
Hayden Hurst.
Oh, God, please, no. Lord, no. Donald.
A lot of people think New England.
Donald Parham Jr.
A lot of people think New England's going to be the worst offense in the league. It might be the Chargers.
At least the Chargers have Herbert. And at least they're going to hopefully be better. New England is just, I don't know. I still think they're the worst team. But I've been proven wrong plenty of times.
All right, Cardinals. As we move through things of note here. Michael Wilson's the guy I want to talk about here. Michael Wilson, late season, showed some productivity with Kyler coming back, rookie last year, big outside guy. Hollywood's gone. They bring in Marvin Harrison Jr., obviously, to be the one. Going to take more than one. I don't hate Michael Wilson running two there, especially with coverage coming off of him, obviously, from Marvin Harrison Jr. That's one thing I wanted to point out here is a guy I honestly look at him like, yeah, that opportunity got better for him by quite a bit.
If the offense takes the step forward, like
full season back with
there's
Murray.
enough targets between Harrison and McBride where the trickle down effect into a Michael Wilson soft coverage, probably not a volume play, but definitely probably potential bye week fill in. I think that's where I think that could be.
Is it not a volume play though? And I want to focus on that for a minute. How many times do you project that Kyler Murray throws the football?
Well, I'm hoping
500, 550.
I can see like between 530 and 560.
His career high is 558. Which conveniently was his last full season.
Yeah.
Then he's been 480, 390, which he missed 5 games that year. So I mean, you're probably a safe bet for around 500 attempts, it would look like, which means that you got 500 targets that got to go somewhere. All right, you give 150 of them to Marvin Harrison Jr. arbitrarily. That's typically where stud receivers sit, right? 150, 160 somewhere in there. You give. So you give 120.
I think it'll be
to
closer
Trey
to
McBride.
120.
Yeah,
I think Harrison
so
could be closer to 120,
you're
130.
250. You got 250 other targets that got to go somewhere, right? So that volume for your second wide receiver, there's still 80 to 100 targets in there for your second wide receiver, if not a little bit more. Because I don't think Zay Jones, Zach Pascal, and Greg Dortch are threatening that, really.
I mean, you hope not.
So
You hope not.
That's kind of where I'm at with that, with the familiarity, a little bit of rapport, a big outside receiver, and the fact that this isn't necessarily a good defense. So you figure they are going to pass 500 to 550 times. Well, you can't give Marvin Harrison Jr. 500 targets, right? Or Trey McBride 500 targets. You're not giving them 250 apiece. So not even close. There's got to be someone else. And I just don't see another threat on here to be someone else. Michael Wilson healthy.
Who's OC?
Cardinals. Drew
there
Petzing is the OC. Jonathan Gannon.
Jonathan Gannon was obviously the DC with Philly. And this Drew guy came over last year. It's been an OCI for 2 years. This will be year 2 as an OC. Younger guy. Obviously, last year you really can't bank. You can't really look to see what his fault.
Didn't have a starting quarterback. He was with the Browns.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's
ends. Sometime with the Vikings.
530, 560 might be pretty high. I said, like, I'm intrigued because there's a lot of unknown on what this team could be. They threw a lot last year because they played behind fuck ton
played
last
behind
year.
a lot.
Yeah.
But
improvement across the board on both offense and defense. I think between both Kyler and Dobbs.
The only thing about the defense is they didn't do a ton.
555.
So
they threw the ball 555 times last year as a team.
So if I'm saying 500, because Murray's going to run more than his backups were.
Okay, you're going 500. Yeah, okay. I get you.
I'm saying
I thought you went higher too.
No, I'm saying 500. Like using 500 as a baseline for targets. Well, okay, you give Harrison 130, you give McBride 100, you still have 270. They got to go somewhere. That's just how.
I mean, maybe Harrison is a 130, 130 to 140. I think McBride is going to be closer to 120.
Yeah,
for sure. I think we're going to see the his year 2 lead for sure.
120. There's still 240 targets.
Wilson is a good bet. Wilson is a good bet as the team's firm number 2 receiver, or at least what we hope and think he is.
Yeah.
It can he live up to that? And
if we are talking next year, this time about Michael Wilson.
I'm not saying Zay Jones couldn't be, because Zay Jones has proven through multiple seasons that he can be a team's wide receiver 2-3.
In 12 games last year, coming on late season, Michael Wilson had 565 yards and 3 touchdowns, half of that without Kyler. You tell me next year that the improved offense around him with the improved jump and him going fully into his role leads to an 1,100-yard season, I'm not going to be surprised.
I would be a little surprised.
And a jump up.
I think yeah, because we're also predicting a jump from McBride, and we all believe that Marvin Harrison's going to probably be over 1,000. Michael Wilson at 800 yards and like 7 touchdowns. If they get a lot of red zone opportunity, maybe he's like a Jordan Addison, where it's not 1,000 yards, but he just gets the big plays. He gets to operate because he's going to see one-on-one coverage. He's not getting double. He's not getting shaded coverage.
Yeah, and I think
if he takes advantage of his opportunity, I think that's where I think like 1,000 would be a bit surprised, but 900 yards though, 800 yards I think would be.
I'm gonna go with maybe that's my bold take for the year, and we'll see if I read that all off season.
I hope you're right, because I got multiple of my
surprised if he jumps up over 1,000.
Over 1,000.
He didn't top one time. He went over 6 targets last year. just once. He missed 4 games to get to that level. He
I got my reserves, but if he
Yeah.
stays on the field, I think 800 yards is.
If he
it's very
plays
much
those
in his
4 games,
wheelhouse.
he probably is exactly what you talked about, a 700 to 800 yard guy with, 5 to 7 touchdowns.
Yeah.
For his rookie.
He's your bye week fill-in. He's on your roster in Dynasty, and he's the guy that you're playing in positive matchups in your bye weeks and redraft leagues.
This checks my bias.
Maybe he's
so
got.
now I know a guy that I'm chasing someplace.
I mean, you and I are just literally on the same page. You're just a little more bold than I am. I'm trying to be a little more realistic.
I usually am when I latch onto something that I like. So, in this case, there's
That's
a
true. You do
situation there
like
that
to,
I really like.
I'm very intrigued.
I like what I like, and I don't like what I don't like.
You are. That is so true. That is very true.
Don't need to talk about the Rams. I don't think we talked about Blake Corum last week. Nothing's changed in the wide receiver room. It's still all guys that were there, unless you really want to talk to Marcus Robinson, which I don't care with Cooper.
We don't need to talk to Rams. I thought Rams were the last team we talk about. So the Niners in Seattle, right?
Niners and Seattle. Yeah.
Seahawks.
Yeah. Don't need to talk about the Rams.
I don't think we need to talk Seattle.
Seattle, because nothing changed there at all. I don't even think we need to talk about
or the Niners.
Because all they did was
Niners won't change for another year, maybe.
Pearsall, so unless there's a move of Debo or Ayuk, we don't got to talk about anything there. So
that'd be very dumb of Niners to trade them. It'd be very, very stupid.
Yeah. So there you go. That's your show. Just a little veteran check in on some outlooks for some guys that are still with the same team, or that maybe were free agents and things happened in the draft, and what to like and how to adjust. I think through all that discussion, we had some takeaways that we don't know what the fuck the Chargers are going to do. It'll be somebody. The Packers have a decent receiver core that we're going to be watching closely for breakouts. Your full go on George Pickens. There's potentially an opportunity that Michael Wilson takes a big step forward, and that the ceiling for Rashee Rice may be a little bit capped, given what Kansas City's at. I think those are the big things we spent a lot of time on. So there's your show recap.
Hell yeah.
All right. We will be back sometime next week to do something. I need to talk to you about that.
Okay.
Toodles.
Toodles.